deck or more of a mid-range deck?
I don't know either.
I mean, it's, yeah. So here we go.
He's going to tip his hand right away. Going to play Sliver Hive.
Sliver Hive, really interesting card from the new set. Taps for any color as long as you're casting slivers. Basically like a Cavernous Souls for slivers, except they can be countered. And then it actually has another ability where you can actually put slivers into play, I believe.
Yeah, as long as you control one.
As long as you control one sliver.
You pay mana and activate it, and you can put a sliver into play. So it's a pretty sweet card. Here's a Mutavault. Now that's the big question, right? Can you play Mutavault and Sliver Hive Lord side by side? There's only one Mutavault in Roy's deck, so he feels a very certain way about this. He's going to play a Mana with Sliver, and it looks like he may be attacking, or is he going to be adding mana? He's actually going to be attacking here, so very easily could have. Actually, no, he can't do it just yet. Next turn if he does have Sliver Hive Lord because of Mutavault. So yeah, that's kind of the problem. Here's a Tidebinder Mage.
Mutavault does count as a sliver, so it's interesting. But yeah, I'm with you because you can't actually cast the Sliver Hive Lord. It makes it very difficult.
Cloud Raptor's going to evolve into a 1/2. You saw the Tidebinder Mage come down and tap the Mana West Sliver, and Merriam is going to hang out on defense. No interest in attacking. So Reese draws a card. It's a copy of Garruk, Caller of Beasts. A little ways away from casting that one. There's a Yavimaya Coast. Those pain lands.
He does have a, it looks like he has an Elvish Mystic in his hand, so he's not that far away anymore, to be honest.
Yeah.
He could technically, next turn, cast Garruk, which would be pretty interesting.
The pain lands are really, really good for this deck, I think.
Oh, yeah. Because he's basically a 5-color deck.
Going to pay 1 to put the Elvish Mystic into play and pass the turn back. See Quetzalcoatlus, the hand Hollow Fountain as well. The tough thing with slivers, because presumably you're going to have to be 5 colors because Hive Lord is so powerful, is just figure out the right mana base. There are a lot of 2s and 1s all over the place here.
Yeah.
4 Sliver Hives and 4 Mana Confluence are easy. The rest is probably pretty difficult.
I'm with you, though. This could be a real deck. The thing is, though, finding the right configuration, because there's just so many different choices that you have to make.
Yeah.
Even something as simple as, do I play Mutavault or not? I think 1 is reasonable, but unfortunately for Roy, he just happened to draw it, so it might impact his mana. We'll see.
Yeah, this is... It's weird that the tribal deck can't play 4 copies of Mutavault, but I don't think this deck can.
Yeah, yeah.
As good as Mutavault is, and obviously we've seen over the past year it's incredible, as Merriam does play one. Going to play a Thassa now as well, but I don't think it can play a bunch of them, let alone maybe even the one that Reese has in play. There's a Sliver Hive Lord. That was the draw this turn.
So let's see what he decides to do here.
There's a Caves. So it looks like he's going to start taking some damage to cast some spells here. 2, 3. Yeah, it's time to drop that bad boy into play, I think. Actually, it looks like he's going to go with Garruk. Yeah, so he's going to start there. I guess he could just minus Garruk and put the Hive Lord into play if he wants to. It looks like the elevator's going to go up, so take a look at the top 5 cards. 2, 3, 4, and 5. There's a Gale Rider. I believe there's also a Leeching. Yeah, we're gonna test our knowledge on slivers right now. Ross doesn't know what that one does.
So he got 3 slivers.
Yeah.
I believe one's a pump, one's a lifelink, and the other's a flyer. And it looks like Roy just has 2 lands in his hand, so I don't think he has the queen just yet. But he does have, gets 3 slivers here. Going to be able to start pumping up his creatures pretty soon. But is it going to be enough? I mean, Ross does have that Thassa in play now. Is he going to be able to start pounding through? Thassa could potentially kill Garruk this turn if he's able to get 1 more devotion for blue, which he does.
Yep, there's Judge's Manor provided.
Oh, and he has a Nykthos as well.
There's a Master. This is a pretty good draw.
Very good turn there for Ross. Has a huge army in play. Roy just... Even though he was able to get 3 slivers, I don't know if he's going to have really enough mana to kind of do everything he wants to do next turn, especially because he's going to lose the Garruk this turn, and take 4 damage on top of that.
Yeah, a bunch of creatures are coming into the red zone now.
Or it looks like he might be, yeah, so he's going to kill the Garruk.
I think you have to,
yeah.
Right?
And then Ross is going to generate a bunch of illusion tokens here. Or elemental tokens, rather. So pretty good turn there for Ross, despite the fact that Roy was able to get a Garruk into play last turn. Not sure how much Roy's going to be able to do this turn.
Yeah, Diffusion Sliver, I believe, was the draw. It's just like he's a little too slow out of the gate.
I don't think Mana with Sliver actually untaps. I mean, I believe
that'll stay tapped because of the Tidebinder Mage.
Yeah. But, so he has access to basically 6 mana currently. He has another land in his hand, so 7 mana. Let's see what he decides to do here. just so far behind here. And
This is the mono blue draw, right?
Yeah.
1, 2, 3 Estasa, 4 is Master of Waves. I mean, it just curved out beautifully.
yeah,
Even Nykthos came down too.
Ross can actually give 3 of his creatures unblockable, make him unblockable next turn with Nykthos. So Thassa can come through. Yeah, so you can attack for 9 again. Yeah, Royce is basically on a 2-turn clock. And that's if he is able to deal with all those elementals.
Looks like Holofont might come into play untapped here. Yeah, so Reese is going to go down to 12. He's got to get some threats out here right away. No time to mess around now. So there's another Slipper Hive over in the hand.
Yeah, in this particular game, it just looks like the blue deck is just, its tempo strategy was just too much for Slivers right now. But again, let's see if he can turn this around.
There's another Gale Rider. 2. Gale Rider's going to add some mana here.
Gale Rider and Mystic. And there's another, another Sliver.
That one's Siphon Sliver. This is testing our knowledge of the Sliver race. That's what this is.
So Ross is going to untap here. Still in really good shape. Let's see what he draws. Looks like he's going to scry that card to the bottom. Draw a card for the turn. Doesn't really need anything else, to be honest.
No, he's got all he needs.
Yeah.
The only thing I actually think he would want now is just mana.
Yeah.
To be able to continue to make more creatures unblockable. And there is the Siphon Sliver. Silver creatures you control do have lifelink. They're not very big right now, unfortunately.
I actually think this is probably, so he's going to be able to do, Mutavault gets +1/+1. So that's 10 right there. If he can do one more.
I promise he can do one more.
Yeah, so even with the lifelink, I think if he just attacks with everything, it should be enough.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure he can do one more. Roy's going to take a look at his hand and consult things. He's going to look at Diffusion Sliver and a Sliver Hive Lord. Wasn't able to get the 5/5 into play that makes everything indestructible. That's when the deck gets really tough, and he's going to scoop it up. So Ross Merriam is going to win game number 1 here over Roy Reese. Mono Blue Devotion up a game over Slivers based off of what is basically the perfect Mono Blue draw. 1, 2, 3 is Thassa, 4 is Master of Waves.
Yeah, and not only is it Master Waves, but it's Master Waves off of Nykthos. So
Yeah.
he actually cast 2 spells that turn, so really good start for Ross. After board, I mean, Ross has got to be thinking, all right, he's a Sliver deck. He's probably not as good. He's not an aggressive deck, or he's not as aggressive as I can be. He's not going to be able to out-tempo me probably. The only way he's probably going to beat me is if he is able to jump the curve with his mana creatures. So kind of think, doesn't have to do that much. I mean, Domestication could be good.
Domestication's got to be good.
Domestication is probably coming in. Maybe Gainsay as a way to counter, the Queen, perhaps.
Maybe to counter the Hive Lord,
the Hive Lord, so I'm just not sure it's good enough. I think he's just going to bring in Domestications. I don't think he really needs to bother with anything else.
On the other side of things, there's 3 Golgari Charms, a Diffusion Sliver, 2 Siphon Slivers, a Belligerent Sliver, 2 Banishing Lights, 2 copies of Xenagos the Reveler, an Elspeth Sun's Champion, a Chase Memory Adept, and 2 copies of Liliana Vest. The thing about a 5-color deck is that you have options aplenty about what you can do.
Well, he's got some. Golgari Charm is interesting because I think it's a card that he wants against Mono Blue Devotion, but doesn't it kill most of his creatures?
That's
as
the
well?
I was thinking, right? It's good against him.
Yeah.
I mean, the problem here is, I guess, the charm is only pretty good if he has a Predatory Sliver in play to make his creatures bigger.
Yeah.
It could still be fine. I think because Master Waves is so good, you're just going to want the charms. The Fusion Sliver is not great in this matchup because Ross isn't willing to be targeting your stuff. Like, I guess you might be a little bit scared of a card like Domestication or Rapid Hybridization. So maybe you just want the 2 in the main deck. I'm not sure if you want the 3rd one. Siphon Sliver's fine. Banishing Light's good. That's got to come in, right?
Yeah.
I can't imagine that doesn't come in. And then there's, these cards that are kind of at random that aren't Slivers. Xenagos the Reveler ×2, Elspeth, Jace, Liliana Vest. Maybe.
I mean, I think Elspeth comes in just because it's still really good against Mono Blue if you can get it to resolve.
Okay.
And you can ramp to it as well. So I kind of like the Elspeth. Xenagos, I mean, I don't know. Yeah, I don't think Xenagos is particularly that great against a tempo-based deck, but Elspeth I could see just because it's so dominant once it comes into play.
There's a chance that Belligerent Sliver could come into play. It's basically the two-headed sliver. Sliver creatures you control have this creature can't be blocked except by 2 or more creatures. Maybe that comes in, maybe not.
Yeah, for this is a strange matchup, mostly because his creature base is basically worse than Ross's, but he can't be more aggressive than Ross because Ross's deck is just too streamlined and too low to the curve. So I think the only way you can really beat Ross is if he is able to jump the curve by ramping. Mana West Lever helps, obviously. Being able to cord a Hive Lord into play somehow, that's good as well. But yeah, in general, I don't see him winning this unless he's able to jump the curve and get like a big bomb into play, like Elspeth. Because we saw him get a Garruk into play and it just didn't matter.
That's true. That's true.
So,
plus it got some cards, didn't matter.
Got 3 cards, just didn't matter. Ross's deck is just too well positioned against that type of strategy because he just curves out its tempo. You're not going to be able to beat a tempo deck like that.
Yeah. Well, we'll see what changes in here in game number 2. Slivers, I think, is something that people are going to work on. I actually wouldn't be surprised, if you see the best teams in the world to dedicate some time to this deck. There's some powerful things going on here.
Yeah,
finding the right config is tough, though.
I think finding the right configuration is hard, but Sliver Hive is a great land. Court of Calling certainly helps this deck, I think, a lot as well. Being able to search out the Sliver Hive Lord is huge, and you're right. I mean, I just think this deck has potential to be good. It's just going to take a long time to figure out what the right configuration is. Like, you're going to have to put the work in to test it. Like, you can't use your intuition. There are some decks that you can kind of intuit in terms of how to build. This is not one of those decks.
Yeah.
There's just too many different cards you have to figure out. Is this sliver even good? Do I just jam all these slivers because they're slivers? Or do I have to, there's some slivers in here that might just not be good enough as silver bullets, you know? Maybe you go for a more streamlined approach and use your chords really just to get, the Hive Lord or something like that,
Yeah, a card like Belligerent Sliver, is it the metagame? Is the metagame appropriate where I need my slivers to basically be unblockable?
Yeah, do you need that? It's just, especially if they're indestructible, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You don't need them to do everything, especially if you already have a sliver that makes them flying. So, it's going to be interesting to see whether or not this deck can evolve into a tier 1 deck. I feel like it has some advantages over a traditional creature deck just because the Hive Lord gives them indestructibility, so it's good against Supreme Verdict, where other, creature like elves or goblins, those decks are more vulnerable to Supreme Verdicts. This is a tribal deck that can actually do pretty well against Supreme Verdict because of Court of Calling and the Hive Lord.
It definitely has some interesting, dynamics and cards in it. A card like Thorncaster Sliver, whenever this creature attacks, it deals 1 damage to target creature or player. That's a 5-mana spell. I mean, it's a cool card, but, is it the appropriate card? There's only 1 in Reese's deck.
And again, I know what he's thinking. He's like, oh, well, it's a silver bullet. I have Court of Calling. But do you really need that silver bullet? Can you really think of a lot of times where you're going to be searching that card out over just the Hive Lord?
Yeah, having all those one-ups, you're going to have some polarized draws. And he's taking a mulligan right now. You don't know if the mana was wrong, if the slivers came up wrong, because the mana is obviously all over the place, too. He's a 5-color deck. You take a look at a mana base, there's 4 Sliver Hives, 4 Mana Confluence, and everything else 2s and 1s outside of 3 breeding pools.
Yeah, so you have to start wondering, is this the right configuration? You're dealing with a 5-color deck. There's a million different cards that you can play because you have access to basically everything. What spells do I play? What's the right combination of slivers? What bullets do I care about? Let alone the sideboard,
Yeah, that's the real hard part.
That's the real hard part. So, yeah, I'm definitely interested to see whether or not slivers evolve into a tier 1 deck, especially at the Pro Tour. Because I'm with you. I would not be surprised to see some Japanese players top 8 at Pro Tour with slivers.
Yeah, for sure. And it would be a build that you did not see coming. Either. That's for sure.
There's no way you're going to see that build coming.
Yeah. They probably have a small sliver engine, like Mana of Sliver, and to get Sliver Hive Lord in play. And it's actually, I just want to 5-5 an indestructible creature.
Yeah.
That's all I wanted.
The Japanese always manage to find the right card to make a deck go from tier 2 to tier 1. They're I believe a Japanese player was the first person to kind of put Pack Rat into Mono Black Devotion. They top 8'd.
Too.
Yeah. I mean, obviously it evolved into a different kind of deck, but they saw it first, you know?
Mahara's Green Devotion deck?
Yeah, same thing. Mahara's Green Devotion deck basically laid out the framework for the decks that we're seeing today.
Yeah. Looks like Reese is going to take a mulligan down to 5 here. This is part of the issue with slivers, I think, at least this build of it. And of course, we're in week 1, so I don't expect it to be a perfect build at this point. You know, again, there's 2s and 1s and, you know, a couple 4s of the necessary cards, and the mana base is all over the place. This deck is, I imagine that Roy's going to take quite a few mulligans over the course of the day because, you know, things aren't going to line up correctly always.
Yeah, and if you're mono blue, you're probably salivating when you're playing against a deck like this because you cannot afford to stumble against a deck like Mono Blue Devotion. They're too streamlined. Their curve is just too aggressive. And whenever you're playing a deck like this with a lot of silver bullets, you could just get these really awkward draws that you just can't afford against a deck like Mono Blue Devotion.
Yep.
Because there's really not even a card that can kind of put you back into the game if you're really far behind, you know? There's not really like a catch-up card.
No, that's what we saw in the last game, right?
Yeah.
Once Master Race came down and made, you know, 6 elemental tokens, I took a look at Roy's deck list. I'm like, all right, does he have a way out of this? And the answer is just a resounding no.
Yeah, it's not like you could even like top deck an Elspeth or something. Like if you look at some of the decks in the format, it's like, all right, well, if they topped up Supreme Verdict, they're right back into it. Okay, if he top decks like a pack right here, it's awesome for him, you know? If he top decks Court of Calling, or if he top decks Palkranos or something, he can be right back into it. There's really not a deck card in Roy's deck that can kind of help him come from behind. It's more of all like pressing my advantage.
Mm-hmm. I imagine once he gets the ball rolling, he's doing pretty well, but you have to be able to get the ball rolling. You see his hand right now. There's a Sliver Hive, I believe, and then no other lands.
He does not look happy.
It's a good read. It's a good read by you.
I'm really good at reading people.
Yeah.
I'm going to say he doesn't look happy with this hand.
How do you think Ross feels right now?
Fantastic.
Yeah. Ross is just looking at his 7 awesome cards. It looks like Reese is going to take another mulligan down to 4 cards.
Probably feels a little bit better now.
Maybe, yeah. I think the matchup is pretty good for Ross.
Well, the most difficult thing for Ross, I think, right now is to try to control his smiling.
Okay.
Because he doesn't want to smile too much. You want to be somewhat sympathetic in situations like this. But, yeah, Ross is obviously very, very happy right now.
I bet he has the nuts, too.
Yeah, I mean, Ross is one of those players that's still in contention for the Players' Championship, too.
Dude, he's right in it.
He's live. I mean, we were looking at the standings at the beginning of the day, and he's basically, you know, he wasn't one of the people we were talking about because he was basically at the bottom of the page, but everyone on that page is live.
Yes, absolutely.
Especially because Joe Lissette isn't here, and I think West Coast players probably don't have as much of an advantage as East Coast players because there's probably more East Coast events towards the end here. Yeah. Not in total, but towards the end specifically. Yep. I mean, if you're on the East Coast, I think you're more incentivized to try to go to more events, as many events as possible. So, yeah, Ross is definitely one of the people still in, along with Fabiano, along with Eric Rill.
And those players that you mentioned, Fabiano, Rill, Bertoncini,
they're
Ross,
all here.
They're all here.
Yeah, Bertoncini is probably the closest.
They're all doing well.
Yeah.
Too. They're off to good starts. And, of course, we're in our 4th round right now. A lot of tournament left to be played, but they're all off to good starts here. Ross and Fabiano sitting at 3-0.
Uh-oh, we have a Boswell sighting in the background there.
The Bos.
The sleepless Bos. So
who else could it be?
For anyone at home, if your girlfriend is watching the stream with you, I would send her out of the room.
Yeah.
You don't want to see the gun show.
A Temple Garden to start things off. Merriam's going to play an island, kick it back over. Reese draws a sliver. It's not a land. Merriam, an island. See if he's got a 2-drop to play. He does have a 1. Excuse me, Cloudfin Raptor. We're passing the turn back. Reese draws a card. It's a copy of Manic Influence. He does have 4 different cards in his hand, so that's one of the 4 different colored cards. That's one of the best draws. There's a Predatory Sliver. I got my sliver game down now.
Now you know.
It's good to go.
For those of you who couldn't see at home, Cedric was actually studying up on slivers while we were off camera right now.
Have to get ready.
Got to get ready.
Frost from Weird's going to evolve both of those Cloudfin Raptors. In for 1 comes the first one. Reese is going to go down to 18. Takes a draw. Didn't get a great look at it. It was a Jace.
Jace, Memory Adept.
Here's a Gale Rider Sliver.
All right, here. So he's got 2 flyers in play.
I think he probably just hold back. I'm not sure if there's a really good attacker. I think he has to play defensively to kind of undo the mulligan, right?
Yeah. Unfortunately, if Ross has any other 2-power creature in his hand or greater, those Cloudfin Raptors are going to be coming in no matter what.
Yeah.
So, yeah, Roy's in a tough spot here. It looks like he is just going to attack.
Merriam will take 2. Try again.
Nope.
Ross, you should know what Grow Rush
Come on.
You won a tournament with that card in your deck. Embarrassing.
So Ross jumps
he
the turn.
knows. He knows.
Yeah, if this is Master right here, I have to imagine Ross just locks this game up.
Yeah.
I don't think Roy even has an answer short of Banishing Light.
Yep. There's Master. I feel like every time I watch Mono Blue, I'm just like, man, if they have Master on turn 4, the opponent can't win.
Yeah.
I feel like that's what we always say. It's like if they have Thassa on turn 3 or Master on turn 4, they can't win.
Unless the opponent has like a Hollow Fountain, a Temple of Enlightenment, and a Water Grave in play, then it's like, big deal.
Yeah, that's going to do it. Ross Merriam's going to win this match over Roy Reese. 2-0. Roy did take a mulligan down to 4 that game, but by and large, Mono Blue Devotion, I think, actually probably has a pretty good matchup against Slivers.
I think Mono Blue Devotion has basically a really good matchup against anything that doesn't have Supreme Verdict in it.
Yeah.